All right. Okay.
All right. Oh. Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Okay. I got just one moment here while I pull up our agenda. And then good to go. All right. I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, September 13th, 2022. It is 1:02 p.m. and we are live on a digital platform. Present in today's meeting, we have myself, Randy Allison, and Eric Biter from the Finance Committee. Bonnie Katz is joining us there in the cheap and silent seats. I see Kevin Mackey from the Treasurer's Office, Chris Black from IT, of course, Molly Steele-Shrimp from HR, Mayor Derek Slaughter, Janice Frank from the City Clerk's Office. And we will be joined shortly by a representative of a software company that we're looking at for addressing our right to know requests. Right. So we have 4 items on today's agenda, but in a little flurry of discussion there prior to the public meeting, it turns out that 2 of them are somewhat on hold, so I can go ahead and address those. We'll start with those items. Item number 2 is an update on the finance department and our plan transition. Mayor Slaughter, can you just speak to that a little bit on the record? We're postponing it until the 27th when Tracy's back in the office.
Yes, Tracy Rash is currently on vacation. She'll be back in the office tomorrow. She continues to work, her company continues to work through the reconciliations, making good progress on that. And also, obviously moving forward with our day-to-day operations. She was able to resolve one of the outstanding issues related to the IRS. That was the $12,000 penalty we had in the fourth quarter of 2021. The IRS did waive that. She's still working with the IRS on the $160,000. She's working through the appeal process, although we're not sure how that's going to work out. So, but things are moving forward. She's making good progress with everything, and we can provide a full update as soon as she returns from vacation at the next finance meeting.
Got it. Hey, Derek, can you do me a favor? And when we're looking at that full update, then I guess I'm just wondering, especially if Tracy's been on vacation here for a couple of weeks, which is fantastic, and everybody should go on vacation, and et cetera, et cetera. But I'm wondering if we're fully staffed enough in the finance department on a day-to-day right now, or if we should be looking at trying to hire somebody ASAP to just sort of give some backup to, I think, the one person who's currently full-time in finance. Even if we're talking about basically a data entry position or something similar. Have you guys discussed that? Where are we at with that? And if not, then can we make that part of our discussion on the 27th?
We haven't discussed hiring someone as far as right at the moment. We have discussed it in the future, and Tracy absolutely does believe that we should add a few additional folks to the finance department. For example, the one we have in there now, doing tasks such as stuffing envelopes, things along those lines, is obviously not a good use of time. But also, part of what will help to alleviate that will be once we have the software updated. But in the meantime, I can check with Kristen and Tracy to see if they think it would make sense to try and get someone in there right now to assist with some of those tasks, even if it is on a part-time basis. I know we've done that in the past before.
Yeah, I think we've hired temps in that department before, and it just seems like, there's bound to be kind of a heavy day-to-day workload if there's only one employee there full-time. So that might be something we should think about doing in the interim while we're working on a more definitive plan. But anyway, yeah, I would just maybe reach out so that we can also talk about that a bit on the 27th. it hadn't really occurred to me, but then after a while, it kind of sunk in that we said that Tracy was working maybe 10 hours a week. And obviously she's accomplishing a lot in that 10-hour time frame, but that still does only leave one person on the ground for all the other, kind of day-to-day financial stuff. And I wasn't sure whether maybe that was, since we already had an overloaded finance department with 2 people in it, it seemed like maybe we were now short-staffed. So just something I was curious about. I think other than that, Randy, Eric, did you guys have anything that had occurred to you that you'd like to kind of put into that discussion on the finance department transition on the 27th? Anything else we should make Derek aware of?
The last point to me was also the question I had on the staffing in the department in the short term. So I guess we'll be discussing that next time around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Eric, anything
Same.
else? Okay.
No, you covered
All
it
right.
well.
Yeah. I think I will be, I'll be excited to get this update when it comes down here. So thanks, Derek. And the other item number 3 on our agenda is a discussion on budgets / capital budget. And that item, we had initially hoped earlier in the summer to start a series of budget discussions during our finance meeting every 2 weeks with the different departments in the city to sort of help structure the upcoming budget, look over some sort of wish lists of things that people wanted to include in the upcoming budget and determine what there might or might not be money for before we put a bunch of effort and energy into incorporating them in the budget, only to have them get cut due to financial concerns. However, because of the transition currently happening in the finance department, those discussions got pushed back to the point where in meeting with the mayor and discussing it with the mayor, it seemed as though it wasn't feasible to conduct the budget discussions in the course of the regular finance committee meeting because there simply might not be enough time with other agenda items, and we didn't want to give them short shrift. So we've arranged for a series of meetings with the member of the finance committee and some department heads over the next couple of weeks on the alternate Tuesdays when the finance committee is not meeting, just to look at the upcoming budget and help to develop it. And then myself, as well as Randy and Eric, will provide updates on how those meetings are going and how things are looking, both to the public and to the rest of council, I think, in our regularly scheduled finance meetings. I think that we had a handful of things in the 2022 budget that we were dealing with at the end of 2021 that sort of departments had gotten their hopes up about X, Y, or Z items, and then in the 11th hour, because our budget was not where we had hoped it would be, those items either got reduced or got eliminated altogether. And my hope is that by opening discussions a little bit earlier and by including both the finance department and members of council as well as members of the administration, we can, I think, gain a better grasp on what the budget can and cannot support for 2023, so that people aren't wasting a lot of time on items that simply aren't feasible. And also so that we can try to prioritize the most important things to add to our budget and find places that we can cut to make those a reality. So we'll be working on that over the next month and a half. And ideally we'll make some headway so that when we receive the budget on November 3rd, there aren't any surprises and there aren't any, we're not looking at a massive tax increase or having to just cut willy-nilly to try and make that not a reality. Randy, Eric, do you have any other comments on that? I'm excited to look at this, but it will be made a bit more complex, I think, by the transition in the finance department. But I'm hoping that we can work through that as well as through these department budgets over the next couple of weeks. What do you guys think?
I agree. Yeah, I think everybody's looking forward to that too. barring any new significant discoveries from through Tracy's reviewing everything, especially the reconciliation part. Hopefully that's minor things, but yeah, at least the more solid information we have, the better we're going to be able to make decisions. So, 100%.
Great. Eric, anything you need to add?
I agree with both of you.
All right. Derek, one more question then on that item, because I had sort of in my, in the day-to-day frenzy had forgotten the capital budget element of that. Where are we with the capital budget?
So Tracy's working on that, Tracy's working through that as well. And so I'll get an update from her on the capital budget item. She made the recommendation actually that we do it on the same site. Majority of municipalities do it on the same cycle as their general fund budget, the regular budget, city budget. And so that would be, she actually reached out to DCD to see if there would be any reason for us to keep it on the July 1 to June 30th, and they said no, that it actually made sense to them as well. So, but I'll let Tracy provide an update on that, but I know she's working through. We did check on those couple questions that we had as far as aligning it with our regular budget, just to sort of streamline the process or just make more sense as we're going through. So I know Tracy she's working on that, and I'll have her make sure she's ready to give an update on the capital budget as well.
Got it. Yeah, I guess chief among my questions there, and you might already know the answer to this, is if we were to try to incorporate the capital budget as part of our budget process here at the end of 2022 for 2023, will we then be effectively skipping 6 months of capital budget, or would we somehow address that? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I understand what you're saying. I would think that it would be, we would just incorporate it right into, sort of almost like 2-in-1 for the first year, but I don't know that answer definitively, but I'll check on that. But I don't think we would skip it. We'd somehow incorporate it into. We
do like an 18 months or something.
Maybe, yeah. I'll see if Tracy can shed some light on that, but I don't think the intent was to try and skip a year or whatever with the capital budget. It was just to align it with our regular budget, so that when we're looking at capital projects and we're looking at 2023 items we want to actually get accomplished, the capital budget and our regular budget lines up.
Got it. Okay.
But I'll
once again, the only caveat that I put out there is that there is a lot of work there at the end of the year already. So we should bear that in mind, both in terms of the workload for the administration and for council, but I think specifically for the finance department, when we're looking at that, is that going to be, that's the one thing I'd recommend we consider. It does sound a little bit simpler in some ways, but that might put a lot of stress on the finance department right around the holidays. So,
yeah, we'll see. I'll check with Tracy on that, and we'll get an update there as well.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Then I guess we've kind of cleared out both of those for the time being, which takes us back up to item number 1. Janice, it appears to be exactly 1:15. Have we been joined by the representative?
I don't know.
Hi.
I told her one.
Good afternoon. I'm here.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Just like, oh, hi, Kristen. Sorry. Like flicking through, like maybe she's in here somewhere. All right. Great. Okay, then we can move on to item number 1, which is just a discussion on the next request software for Right to Know. Kristen, if it's okay with you, I'd actually prefer, Janice, would you mind introducing the item a little bit?
Okay. Since the pandemic, I've gotten probably twice the number of Right to Know requests. So they're really hard to keep track of. So I did an Excel spreadsheet, which doesn't just doesn't cut it for the right to know request. But so I researched some other third-class city clerks. How do they do their right to knows? I found out that maybe a third of them have attorneys that do the right to knows. Some of them have the Excel spreadsheets, which they're not happy with, and then a couple of them had the next request, which brings me to Kristen. And so I typically get maybe 25 to 40 a month, and sometimes 5 in a day. Most of them, I did send out some to the Finance Committee. I don't know, Liz, did you guys receive copies? So some of them are like that. Some of them are, majority of them are codes related, permits, but the whole thing involves me getting the request, sending it out, sending a letter to the people, letting them know I've received them. I have 5 days to answer them. If I don't answer them in 5 days, I have to send out an extension letter. Then the extension letter lays there, and I have little Post-it notes right now to remind me, oh my gosh, I have to get back to codes to let them know that, you know, we have a couple more days before the 30-day extension's up, or get back to the Bureau of Police, or get back to HR, whomever. So it's, and during the pandemic, you know, I lost track. I really did, because of working at home for almost a year. So when they came in, I was back and forth in the office. But then with the move, right to knows are all over the place. Right now, I have probably four to five file drawers full of them. So anyway, which brings me to Kristen, and she can introduce how next request works, unless you have questions for me.
Nope, I don't think so. I mean, I think we're all sort of aware of how onerous some of these right to knows can be. But yeah, I think most of the question is, Kristen, exactly what does the software do? And from the finance perspective, what does it cost? If you can help us out with that, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you all letting me join this meeting today. I've been working pretty closely with Janice, and I know she's been overwhelmed with requests, like a lot of folks are these days, especially after COVID. But essentially what Next Request is, it's a portal where requesters can go and they submit their request, and it makes lives easier for people actually making requests, and then also people like Janice who have to actually fulfill those requests. There's a lot of automation involved. So rather than having to manually log things in a spreadsheet, keep up with sticky notes or reminders that you have something due, manually send messages to the requester and try to keep up with all this, Next Request takes all that manual work out of it. So request comes in, automatically notifying Janice, it's automatically going to assign a due date, automatically get a reminder when that due date's coming up. There's automatically going to be an audit trail just to make sure everything's compliant. We're tracking absolutely everything that's going on with this request. Sending out messages to the requester, can send those out easily through templates. It's going to make sure, you know, nothing's slipping through the cracks, just to kind of make her life a little easier. So it's a cloud-based system. And essentially in terms of what it costs, so we have an annual subscription. The economy plan, which is what I was discussing with Janice, that is $4,788 a year. So that's the annual price for Next Request. We've found that usually when agencies are getting 75 plus requests in a year, that's when it starts to make sense to look into tools. And Janice is getting 25 to 40 a month. So we have an ROI calculator. If you want, I can kind of show you some of the savings that goes into it. But it's the savings are well more than the cost of Next Request at just under $5K.
Well, yeah, go. Well, here, let me open it up. Randy, Eric, what questions do you have?
The one I have off the top of my head is the information that Janice has to gather is from other departments. Can they interact with the software to get her that information?
Yeah, good question. So they can. So unlimited internal staff users. So she gets a request and she can assign that to the appropriate department, multiple departments, the appropriate person, send messages to them, and they can then go in, upload their responsive document, send her a message, say, we're good. And then she can kind of take it from there.
Okay. That's all I have for right now.
Great. Anything from you, Eric?
Oh, I'd love to see that ROI calculator.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Let me see if I can share my screen. Oh, host disabled participant screen sharing. If you want, I can send that over via
Hang
email. If you want.
hang on, I can get you there.
Okay.
You should be able to share that now.
All right. Awesome. Let me pull it up. All right. You able to see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So we've done like a lot of research on this, and what I did was I put together kind of an estimate. So on the low end, 25 requests a year, a month rather, works out about 300. On the high end, we're estimating just under 500. So we can kind of see a breakdown here, see the total savings, but also how much it typically costs per request. The savings in terms of the time that's being spent on these requests. I know these requests kind of range in complexity. Some are quicker than others, and some requests require a lot of people to be involved, a lot of eyes on these documents. So we've kind of factored that in here. And of course, I can send this via email as well if you'd like.
Got it. So when you say the requests are diverted, Kristen, you mean that they're basically they're not required to be answered by the municipality, so they're simply like returned to the requester, or what does diverted mean?
In some cases, yes. In other cases, there are ways that you can divert that traffic to places where that information might already live. So for example, sometimes like budget, meeting minutes, agenda, that's already on the website. So you can set up keyword alerts. So when someone's trying to make a request for those things, we can let them know, you don't really need to make a request. We have that on our website. Here's the link. And that diverts some of that traffic.
And it looks like part of your platform, well, part of at least the information that we received refers to proactive publishing of city materials to make information more readily available so you don't need to respond to requests for it. Is that something your organization assists with? I was having a bit of a hard time.
Oh, yeah, good question. So let me pull this up. So this is like what a portal looks like. So this is essentially what a requester would see. If you want to make things public, and usually the way people do that is they get a request, they fulfill it, and they decide this one will make visible to the public. You can pick and choose which requests, if any. When you start making things public, this search button here is going to appear. And this is where someone could go and they can look up, specific requests. If there are any documents, they're able to view them in here. I'm signed in as an admin or a staff user, so it looks a little different on my point of view. This one is one of our customers, the city of San Diego. So if you ever are curious what it looks like from a requester's point of view, feel free to check it out. It's sandiego.nextrequest.com. It's the same premise. So in terms of us helping you make that public, we have a lot of resources to show you how you would do that. But essentially, when Janice is responding to a request, she would decide if she wants to make this public or she wants to keep it between you all and the requester.
And do we need the requester's consent for any reason to make it a public document? Or are they effectively making it public when they make the request?
A lot of times people, what they'll do is on the make a request page, they'll put this kind of disclaimer here. Everything in this request box will be displayed publicly if the agency makes your request public, just letting them know. It's up to you. And usually we recommend you all chat with like your legal team to make sure you're following all of their guidance.
Okay.
But up to you.
Because that in itself might deter some right to know requests. But so yeah, that may be useful. Then next question, you said the software is a little under $5,000 a year. Is there a point at which that sort of ratchets up? Like, is there a number of requests at which you say, okay, now you're in the $10,000 a year bracket, or is the software?
Yeah, so not based on number of requests. Every year it's subject to a 5% increase just based on inflation and all the new features that we're adding, but it's not limited to the number of requests or anything like that. Nothing like that. And also, if you're looking for any sort of discount, I discussed this with Janice as well, but we can offer a discount to say, rather than a 1-year agreement with us, at 2 years, we can provide a 3% discount
Okay,
For 2 years, we can do 3%, or 3 years, we can do a 5% discount.
got it. Yeah, no, I guess I was just at when you said you served San Diego, I was like, I wonder what it cost you to do it.
I know, they're getting a lot. They're getting a lot. Sometimes I show this during calls, and as we're talking, like this number just creeps up within like minutes. It's just crazy what they're dealing with.
Kristen, I got a question from the tax area here.
Yeah.
Can this be something set up with our tax request? So if someone's requesting tax certifications or information on specific parcel?
If you want to use it for that purpose, you can. We have customers that use Next Request for all sorts of requests, so not necessarily just public record requests, but other things as well. Sometimes people have like internal requests that they process through here, and they just keep it totally internal. Sometimes people use it for subpoenas. So yeah, if you want to use it for that purpose, absolutely.
No, I was just thinking in terms of automating some of the stuff over here so that we're not spending 20 minutes on a phone call talking about 7 parcels.
Okay, gotcha.
How easy is it to transfer information, Kristen? That is to say, I mean, a records request is one thing because it's a form someone fills out that then comes down to the city clerk, and then obviously we can make the responses public. But do you also host information as part of this, as part of the open public records sites you host for municipalities? Or are they basically portals into our website and we would put that information on our website? How does that part of it function?
Yeah, so this would be so you'd have your own URL, and usually customers will have a link directing them here, and you're responsible for putting information in here. So a lot of the times people just kind of do it as the requests come in. So a request comes in for this, I'll put in that document.
But so all the information is hosted on your site.
Right. But you own that information. So if you want to export that at any time, it's yours.
Got it. So it's relatively easy to export. In terms of the upload, is that relatively simple as well? Like if we said, okay, screw it, we're just going to put all of X, Y, or Z, all of our meeting minutes online or something like on this site, would that be a relatively straightforward thing to do, or is it complex enough? Okay.
So if it's part of a request like this, you just add a document, or if you just want to proactively start putting things in here, you just upload them in here. And there's no limitation on the number of files, the size, the type, anything like that.
Got it.
And you can also put, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry, please.
No, I was just going to say, sometimes with kind of like what you were mentioning, people will put that on their regular website, and they'll just use keyword alerts, or they'll just have links like on their actual landing page here saying where they can find that. Got it.
So there's a pretty good flow then back and forth between your portal and our website.
Yeah, you can have links in there.
Got it. Good. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'd rather be hosting all of it on our website anyway, especially because at some point, if we discontinued the service, then we wouldn't want to have to get all that information back off and put it elsewhere. But just trying to figure out where the kind of communication happens, I guess. Okay. Randy, Eric, do you have any other questions right now?
Maybe just from Janice's viewpoint, and also Kristen, you could chime in on this. How do we have a smooth transition from to educate the public from doing it pen or paper method or phone calls to guiding everyone towards this portal?
What I've seen a lot of our customers do, they'll have like announcements on their website, social media. If you're looking for help or guidance on making those types of announcements, I think we have some templates that we've used in the past that we can share with you. And just kind of letting people know, if you still get requests coming in via email, usually we just recommend, there are ways you can put that in. You just say, we're now using Next Request. We highly recommend you use this as well, and just kind of spreading that word on your website through social media. And if we need to make any sort of announcements, we can most likely assist with that as well.
Got it. Just to follow up to that, Kristen, have there been any sort of legal battles related to trying to force people to a digital platform for right-to-know requests?
Typically, the customers that I work with, they don't necessarily force anyone to do this. There's a part on here. So when someone's making a request, they don't necessarily have to make it through here. So if Janice gets a request and someone hands her a form or sends her an email, she can put that in on their behalf, just so it's in here. So you don't necessarily have to tell everyone you must use this, because I understand how people are there. Not everyone's going to do it.
Yeah, well, and you're not from central Pennsylvania.
Good
Good
one, Liz.
Yeah. I mean, we probably still have a number of people around here who actually legitimately just don't have computers, don't have smartphones, don't use that technology on a regular. I know that I still get calls from people looking for like paper brochures for my business, anyway, just different.
North Central
okay.
Pennsylvania,
Yeah,
to be
exactly.
specific.
It's a different world out here. But good. So Janice can receive the request and input it to kind of start the clock ticking, and she'll receive all the same reminders as though it had been put in by another person, the actual requester. So that works out well. And then she would just have to compile the records on paper and hand them to the person, correct?
Yeah, she could do that. There are ways in here as well where she could just kind of leave a note for herself, just saying, just so she knows when she goes back why they weren't released digitally. She could just say, I handed these to the requester in person, something like that.
Okay.
Great.
That never happens anymore, Liz.
Oh, good.
I actually don't get in-person ones at all.
Okay. Oh, that's good to hear. All right. That was mostly.
That is good.
Yeah. Because and we used to have, then that used to trigger all sorts of fees for copies, et cetera, that were, I think, also a real hassle. And it wasn't possible to charge enough for copies to make it worth the time that you were spending to make them. But
and the sad thing, there's no charge for people when we send them electronically, even though the work is done. It's not 25 cents a page. So I could send out electronically 30 pages and there's no charge.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that was explicitly kind of a copying fee, but yeah, there's when yeah.
Right.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But it certainly sounds as though this software will help us streamline. So Janice, which municipalities in Pennsylvania did you run into that use this software currently? Or Kristen, if you have names, you can chime in.
Kristen, do you have some of the Pennsylvania ones?
So the ones that are showing up on my end, I see Center County, I see City of Lancaster. We have over 400 agencies across the country. I think those are the two closest ones that it's pulling up. But we have all different sizes all across the country.
Okay. Yeah, and Lancaster and Center County are both somewhat similar to us, maybe larger, but not vastly larger. So I think that actually is a good comparison. Janice, when we actually put this on the agenda, I would assume you're thinking 2 weeks from now?
Yes, yep. All goes well today.
Got it.
Write resolution for the cost, but I'd have to know if we were going to go 1 year, 2 years for the discount for the.
It would be my recommendation that we go after a 3-year contract. Kristen, will that includes the escalator one way or the other? The 5% annual escalator?
Yeah, you'll have 5% for 3 years. Yep.
Got it. But yeah, it would be my recommendation, Janice, that we'd probably go with the 3-year contract. I don't think, just in terms of seeing the utility of a software, I think it's probably helpful to have more than a 1-year contract. You know what I mean? I don't think within a year we will have completely fleshed out the possibilities of the software one way or the other. So I think we would need to try it for a little longer than that. I don't know how, Randy and Eric, if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I agree with 2 years. I think it gives us time to acclimate, work through the bugs.
Got it. Janice, you could also, I think you could also do, a resolution with then an accompanying sheet listing the price if we were to go with a 1 year, a 2 year, or a 3 year option, and sort of submit it to the, members of council to think about what would be the best option. Yeah, but
Have we discussed what line item we're going to take this from? Or?
That's what I was going to say.
Okay.
That's what I was going to ask.
I thought maybe you had some ideas, Janice.
Well, I don't know, contingency. because I certainly don't have it in my budget, especially
Right.
this year. I mean, I could plan for it next year. Kristen said, I did ask her if we could do 3-month breakdown to roll this out in October. How are you guys about that? Or do you want to wait till January?
I would say that we might be best off to clean slate it in January, especially because the question is, where is it coming from?
Right.
And with all the sort of finance reconciliations happening right now, do you know what I'm saying? It might be best off to try to wait until the new year, incorporate it in the 2023 budget, and ideally have a full financial picture so that we know that we, it's budgeted in your office and everything else. What do you guys think about that?
I think year to year like that makes sense.
I would also say, Janice, that might give us a bit more time. We're looking at departmental budget a couple of weeks with the mayor. That might give us a bit more time to incorporate that into the financial picture for the general government. You know what I mean? So that we get a bit more of a picture. As I can't imagine that something that will sort of make us more compliant and also ideally, save us on staff time is in a kind of a win-win for the city. But it'll allow us to incorporate it into the larger budget and, sort of make a case for that budgetary increase.
Okay, so should I still submit a resolution for next agenda or not?
Well, sorry, that's kind of, I apologize, Janice. I should have worked through this thought process before the meeting, but I didn't for some reason. I guess I would say, Randy, Eric, what do you think? Should we make mid-October as a good time for this one to come before council?
I think so.
So that
Yeah.
we can have those budget discussions, kind of factor that into the larger budget discussions and the city council budget in particular. And then you can bring it to us as a resolution like middle or end of October, Janice. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great.
Okay. So you just got to make it to January, Janice.
Okay, I'll write it up that way. Kristen, did you hear that?
I heard that.
Kristen, what's the turnaround from the time that we authorize a contract with you to when we can go live with the software?
Yeah, we can move pretty quickly. So with the economy plan, we have a lot of resources in self-onboarding. So what we'll do is we create the portal and we provide you with a ton of resources to make sure you have everything up and running. You'll have a customer success team if you have any questions. Whenever you're ready, you can go live. So it's just kind of a matter of hitting this go live button up here at the top or wherever it is here it is. I've seen customers do it and as quickly as like 3 weeks. Sometimes it's 8 to 10. Depends on your timeline.
So if we were to authorize a contract with you toward the end of October, that could give Janice. So I guess the question is, does our contract with you start when we authorize the contract or when we go live?
When you authorize it, but we can kind of work through that as well. So if we need to adjust start dates or invoice dates or whatever we need to do, let me know. We can be kind of flexible.
Because I think it would be nice to try and go live with this early in January. But if that means you would need a little bit more time to try to sort of figure out the back end stuff and get all the information uploaded, that's something we should look at. And Janice, maybe that's something you can discuss a bit more with Kristen before we bring this item before council.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Yeah. I'm going to need time to input stuff and then get ready to go live. And like she said, sometimes 3 to 8 weeks. So I might need the end of this year. And hopefully they can work with us. And
so why don't you guys discuss that so we know sort of what the deal is when we're looking at the full resolution. Okay.
Yeah, and Kristen could come to the council meeting via Zoom when we do have this.
Yeah. No, I think that would be quite helpful. I don't think Kristen will need to make another appearance at a committee meeting, but it would be helpful, I think, to have her at the full body of council meeting just to discuss the software. That's also maybe a good opportunity for a little bit more of a public facing discussion about the transition to an online application, etc. You know what I'm saying? transition to a new system. So, Randy and Eric, do you have any other points to make about this?
I don't.
I do not.
All right, then I think, Kristen, thank you so much for coming and joining us today and answering so many of our questions. As we, get further in this process and have more questions, we might have Janice kind of pass some stuff along to you. But this looks like a good fit for our needs, and it looks like it should help lighten the workload and ensure better compliance throughout the city.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you all letting me join today. If you think of anything, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call, but I'll be in touch with Janice.
Okay, sounds
All
great.
right. Have a great rest of the day.
Yep, you too.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
Thanks.
All right, and that brings us to item 4 our agenda, with the related items. Does anyone present in the meeting have anything to introduce for the good of the order?
I have a couple of things I'd like to bring up, if you don't mind, please.
Sure.
There's a couple of big projects that I'd like to get started, and they're going to be fairly good sized dollar amounts. At least the one is, which would be a redo of our entire server infrastructure and networking itself. I'm guessing I have to do an RFP for those, or can I go out to different vendors that I know of, or should I just? I'm just wanting, what's the city's procedure on this?
That's probably actually a better question for a solicitor, and that question in particular you could likely direct to Norm Lubin.
Okay.
It depends a little bit whether it falls under the rubric, under the umbrella of professional services, or falls more under like a contracting. Like we have to send things like paving city streets have to go out for RFP, right?
Okay.
Whereas professional services do not. But I'm guessing someone who will be providing like a whole new set of servers for the city, that probably would fall under the RFP requirements.
Okay.
But I would double check that with a solicitor, and Norm could probably get you an answer on that.
All righty. The other one's not quite as large, but it's for a,
And the second question, Chris, is are those expenditures you're looking at in this budget year that you have funding for, or something you're looking for in 2023?
this is something I'd be looking to get out of ARPA funds because of the sheer dollar amount that it's going to be involved.
Okay. Well, that is also a discussion.
Right. Yeah. It's just like which road do I go down first?
What's the dollar amount that you're contemplating here?
I'm estimating about 150,000.
Got it. Is it possible? So we're looking at discussing general government needs, administration and finance committee together, I think on October 18th.
Okay.
Wait that long to get things jump started?
I have a couple feelers out on people are getting me kind of like their unofficial quotes. So that would give me a good idea of what kind of range we're going to be in.
I think that would be good. I guess part of the question to me is, even if we were utilizing ARPA funding, if we want to take the money from the general fund and the ARPA funding as part of our lost revenue calculation, or whether we can take it directly from ARPA. That is to say, I don't know whether that sort of expenditure is directly ARPA compliant, or whether we have to be using general fund dollars that happen to be lost revenue.
Yeah, to my understanding, technological infrastructure does fall underneath it, but that's what one person had told me. I did not research it myself.
Got it. And we can look into it more once together. But yeah, that's a big chunk of money. What's the lifetime on these new servers? What, 10 years maybe?
Possibly 5 years.
So
That's all that they'll run warranties out for anymore.
got it. So we're looking at having to upgrade them again 5 years down the road.
Yeah, more likely.
Yeah, I would personally rather see that incorporated into the general fund in some way. How do you guys feel about that?
If it's going to be a recurring cost,
Right.
rather quickly, yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. Just because at least then we know that it's there, Chris. I feel like when we pay for something, we sort of set it off to one side, and it's like it's never going to happen again. And then 5 years down the road, it comes back up. What?
Is there a way that I can budget so much per year to carry over each year? So when it gets 5 years down the road and I'm not having to worry about it being stolen and paying off something else?
Right.
I mean, we can theoretically escrow funds.
Okay.
That it's never a guarantee that somebody's not going to steal it. I'm sorry, Chris. We are a whole bunch of thieves and looters, all of us in cahoots here, but
Let's
Winners and
say it's
saints.
a reapplication, not a regular theft.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to be clear, right? And it's all like Peter to pay Paul sort of stuff around these parts, but you know, we have definitely escrowed funding. In fact, we've been doing it for years for Memorial Pool to try and put something into a
Right.
fund to do updates on Memorial Pool. This would be a bit more concrete, but I think that is partly what I would recommend, that we build 150 grand into the 2023 budget, say to upgrade our servers, and then we build 40,000 in a year over the 4 years after that,
Okay.
with an eye toward having the money when we need to do it again in 5 years. We need to look a little harder at what exactly those numbers should be, but I'm a big supporter of trying to pre-budget for things, because otherwise what happens is we wind up like leasing servers over a 5-year period, and then we're paying 10% more because it's a lease agreement instead of purchase. So
Correct.
right.
How many
Right.
servers does 150 grand get you?
This would be approximately 4,
Okay.
but they're huge. That will virtually run about 25 to 30 servers on them.
Oh, okay.
So it's not really, I mean, there's physical boxes, then there's virtual boxes that run on those physical boxes.
Right. Mhm.
And we have some virtual boxes that need to go bye-bye very bad. We have one version that in a couple of years will be legal to drink. It's that old. So
Took me a second to get that. I was like, wait, since when is it okay to give your server a drink?
it turns 21.
All right. Okay, got it. And then the other smaller ticket items, Chris? None of
The
them
other smaller item was going to be for a centralized document storage system, where then we could have everything indexed. You can, the documents that are stored currently in the bottom of City Hall, and wherever would be scanned into this system, and then they could be searched by whichever keywords we decide to set up on them.
Got it. And would that item include the scanning and processing of all those documents so that we would get them?
Those are options that I'm looking into.
Okay, because I would highly recommend that. Well,
We
to
just
me,
hire
it's
someone to bring it in.
unless we also have developed a mechanism for putting the documents on the system.
Right, just because of the sheer volume of documents that are down there that need to be put in, you could hire probably 3 full-time people. And that's all they would do all day would be to feed stuff in.
Right. So that would be something that I would personally, I can't speak for anyone else, I would feel a bit more comfortable taking something like that directly out of ARPA funds, because it is a one-time occurrence. Do you know what I mean? Like, we get everything scanned, and then theoretically everything else is digital from here on out, and we don't need to worry about it anymore.
Yeah,
Right.
there's 2 tracks you can go down. One where we still have to go back and get everything, manually copy it and bring it in, and start from day 0, like October 1st, everything we're going to be doing now will be stored online, and we'll bring everything in gradually afterwards. Or October 1st, we start with everything there and we're pulling everything in via a third-party company,
Right.
scanning and inputting the information.
I think it would be my recommendation for a number of reasons that we go through a third-party company to have all the information scanned. I don't think it wouldn't make sense for the city to onboard employees for a position that ideally would be eliminated over the next couple of months or years. You know what I mean? But Randy and Eric, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I do not.
No,
Sounds like work.
I think I think your point is well taken. Be better to have a third party to do it. Much like our codified ordinances.
And And then anything else, Chris, aside from those two? I mean, I'm glad somebody's taking on the scanning of documents thing.
Yeah, there's those two things, and another one I'm gonna be looking at is gonna be changing out server or switches within the buildings. But I need to get a more solid count on what we want, where we want. And there's a couple other things that are hanging up in the air with a couple other projects that are going on locally, not necessarily within the city, that I'm gonna try and make use of.
Okay, good. Well, yeah, so as I said, there will be kind of an open call for, general government needs in the 2023 budget on October 18th. We'll be
Okay.
discussing this with the mayor. So it would be good to get that information around for them, or by then. It would be, I think, perhaps wisest to provide it to members of the finance committee, maybe a week or so before, so that we could review those needs and the dollar amounts associated with those prior to the meeting.
Yeah. The only other thing that can throw a whole wrench in this whole thing is how soon or if we're moving out of City Hall, because that's where they're all residing right now.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, I think there would have to be maybe some amount of leeway built in for potentially having to move them and store them elsewhere until we could get them scanned. But nothing that I've heard has led me to believe that we're making that we're making a full move out of City Hall anytime in the very near future, unless someone knows something I don't.
You guys know as much as I do.
Okay. Well, I never know
Maybe.
much. So. But okay.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to bring up?
I got two things. One is to touch on what was discussed earlier with the mayor about getting some assistance for finance. I think there should be a little bit more urgency than 2 weeks down the road, just because we are heavily reliant on one person in that department right now for the entire financial needs of the city. And if that one person has to have something happen to them, I think we'll definitely be in very much a lot of trouble. And the second thing is that this is a lot less urgent, but I would like to look at getting on a second full-timer in his position in my department at one point.
Right. Yeah, you've mentioned that before, and that's something that we'll look at on that October 8th.
Just because I just had my other part-timer resign this morning. Again, to go find a position with better benefits and better pay. So
right. Yeah. Well, so that I guess the one thing that I would probably then encourage you to put together for that meeting, Kevin, is an idea of what's likely to be an attractive salary for a full-time employee in that position, and or a look at it just sort of depends if we can make do with two part-timers that we can provide benefits for, if we think we could find anybody like that, which I think is unlikely, but those are questions that might be asked.
the main thing is just retention for me right now, because we'll be hiring our third part-timer in the few months of actually been here, and I would like to actually keep the people I'm training.
Yeah.
But it's less. I'm less focused on that. I'm more like to get someone in the finance department to help our current person there quicker than my own needs, just because I'm aware of how necessary that area is versus my need.
Yeah. Quick question for you, Kevin, just in case you're more familiar with this area of the law than I am. There wouldn't be any way to share someone between those two departments, correct? Because of the separation of powers requirements?
I believe they would need to be separated to a degree. I'm not sure on the exact specifics of that.
Got
I
it.
think this was discussed between Tracy and I at some point that we could look at doing that, but then we were thinking about it, and because they are two separate departments, because they do have their own responsibilities and separations, that it couldn't be done because of that.
Got it. Well, that might be something worth looking into, if for no other reason than because I think there are busier times of year in the finance department and busier times of year in the treasurer's department. And if we had a staff member who could maybe do work more in the treasurer's department in tax season and more in the finance department toward year end, that might be a very good way to create a bit more bang for our buck there.
Mhm.
Especially if we're talking about a full-time position where we're offering benefits, so the cost of the employee ratchets up substantially.
And I think a lot of the responsibilities wouldn't be as in-depth as I have my current full-timer doing. It's
Mhm.
just something to help us get through the tougher periods and work our lunch periods. So we have
Right.
some coverage here, and then I can go out and take care of some of the other taxes that are processed in my office.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess that's what I'm saying. If this is, I mean, if we're talking about bringing somebody in basically for data entry, et cetera, in the finance department, and then you have needs that are somewhat similar in the treasurer's department. I'm not suggesting that one full-timer will do for departments. I am suggesting that it would give us a bit more, just a bit more flexibility. You know what I
Correct,
mean?
yeah.
If that employee could be shared between departments legally, I think that could provide an extra hand when needed across both departments, which might.
I can reach out to Norm on the specifics if you'd like.
What's that? Sorry.
I can reach out to Norm on the specifics.
I think that would be a good idea if you could reach out just on the legal specifics. Because that, like I said, I think it would make a stronger argument for a full-time hire if we knew that during slow seasons in the treasurer's office, the person could move over and help out in finance. But like I said, I have no idea in terms of the separation of powers, if that's feasible. So, okay. Anything else on that, Kevin?
Nope.
Okay.
I just
And
want
we
to
will-
reiterate the sense of urgency on the finance side.
Yeah. I'm hoping that Derek will have picked up on that a bit, but I'll try to underline it again here after the meeting. Okay. Does anyone else have anything to discuss? Speak now or forever hold your peace, folks. All right. Okay, then thank you everyone for attending, and thank you both Chris and Kevin for bringing those items to our attention.
Yes.
It's much appreciated. And if I hear no other items for discussion, then I would take a motion to adjourn. Right?
So